This is from Yardbarker. 3 Browns who could have bounce backs 2024. Number 1, Deshaun Watson. When he's been on the field, he has underwhelmed, throwing 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Yeah, his numbers haven't been great. They are 8-4 in the 12 games he's played in. Nick Chubb, 28-year-old, may never return to being the same player he was and become the latest reason why the running back position is undervalued. But if anyone can make the comeback, it's Nick Chubb. Za'Darius Smith, coming off a 10-sack campaign in 2022, disappointed with just 27 tackles, 5.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble in 2023. Still reasonable to expect him to step up his game heading into the second season with Cleveland, which is returning most of the players after boasting league's top defense in total yards allowed. I think all 3 of those guys could potentially come back. The Nick Chubb thing's interesting. You're starting to see him. You saw the squatting, 540 pounds. You see some of the movement, some of the things that he's doing, and I'm starting to think, well, he might be back sooner rather than later.
Well, the Nick Chubb thing is just difficult, because I think the Browns, it's going to be one of those things where, how much can he give you? Because to think about what he went through, and if you're the Browns, you're talking about 20 games, possibly 21 games this season. So if week 1's your benchmark, do you think he's going to be able to give you 20 to 21 games, ideally, off of the injury he had last year? So I think that's why maybe the pullback is there and why maybe week 1 is not that realistic. Deshaun, it's just a question of it. And look, and you guys know the way I feel. We've talked about this 100 times. 8-4, the record, the way he was playing, the games he was winning. That's kind of what mattered last year. And look, if Deshaun Watson went out there and won 12 games, nobody would be talking about the statistical output. They wouldn't care because obviously he did what he needed to do when it mattered, like that final drive against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. And Za'Darius Smith, it's a little bit different because, Za'Darius Smith, we're talking about, maybe the wrong end of a prime age at a position. And, certainly came in and, maybe the 5.5 sacks isn't great. His pressure rate was better than that. And it's not for Za'Darius Smith to come in and, compete with Miles sack for sack. Or I don't think the realization is even for Za'Darius Smith to go out and give you a double-digit sack season. But it's, between himself, between Alex Wright, between Agba Arankwo, I think maybe you'd say, hey, if we could get 20 out of those 3, and you compare that to, Miles, 15, 16 that we're accustomed to year in, year out, that means between those 4, you'd have 36, and you figure you piecemeal another 15 or more between everybody else on the roster. It becomes a really, really, solid number. But, Za'Darius brings things that people don't, basically understand because it doesn't necessarily equate to stats. It is the pressure rate. It's the fact that he can rush from the inside. He can play the right side. He can play the left side. So there's a lot of factors. I think did people originally thought Za'Darius Smith was going to give you a better statistical output last year? Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say. But looking at everything and understanding, there was a little missed time. It certainly played through some injuries because it always seemed like Za'Darius Smith every fourth quarter of every game was a little dinged up. It's it's about maybe being the guy that's going to start to pass the torch here to Alex Wright. He will be the starter and he will be the leader in the beginning of the season. But it wouldn't be shocking if that by the end of the season where he and Alex Wright were maybe in a 50-50 split with Agbo certainly getting his share of reps between that those two aren't taking and certainly trying to get Miles a little bit more rest than we've ever been accustomed to. And it's not that Miles is just not that great, not that effective, but you want the one most closest to 100% version of Myles Garrett week in, week out. They've done a great job. I think the edge room has really, really developed well. And we haven't even gotten to talk about Isaiah McGuire yet, who should have a shot at certainly a decent amount of playing time here this year. But Za'Darius is the one that probably has the toughest hill to climb because, he's starting to kind of maybe look father time eye to eye here a little bit as far as NFL players' time is concerned.